name is Jaymie Today I am going to be reading and explaining two of William Wordsworth's well-known poems. Both pieces are from a collection of poems known as Poems in 2 volumes, published in 1807. I wandered lonely as a cloud, written by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine in twinkles on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. Then waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. This poem, one of the most famous in the English language, was composed by Wordsworth in 1804. In 1799, Wordsworth and his sister settled in a small house, formerly an inn. His focus was to concentrate on writing. During his time of simple living and high thinking, he wrote his best and most well-known poems. On April 15, 1802, a windy day in Grasmere, England, he and his sister Dorothy went on a long journey along the coast of Ullswater, where they came upon a lovely field of daffodils. Dorothy recounted the beautiful experience in her diary and described in great detail how the flowers tossed and reeled and danced while laughing with the wind. Her lovely diary log inspired Wordsworth to write it in the form of poetry 2 years later. Wordsworth published his poem in 1807. He changed and reworked it several times until he published its final version in 1815. His first version was published as a 3-stanza poem. His final version was finalized with 4 stanzas. His complete copy was really just a simple revision of the original. However, a few tweaks in the new lines and vocabulary reflected the changes in his lifestyle and where he saw himself in the order of the social hierarchy. In the poem, the speaker metaphorically compares himself to a natural object, a cloud, which floats and soars above the hills and valleys. He is lonely until he encounters a field of daffodils beside a lake. The glory they provide serves as a sort of investment. When the speaker feels lonely, he continues to bank on the moment of glory he felt when he first saw the glorious sea of yellow daffodils. The speaker uses the literary technique of figurative speech to compare the joyous memory to the stars that shine and twinkle in the Milky Way. Just like the stars stretch across the never-ending sky, so also the bright and yellow flowers are stretched across the never-ending sea of grassy field. The poem contains 4 stanzas, each containing 6 lines. These lines follow a quatrain couplet rhyme scheme, so that it looks like this: A, B, A, B, C, C. For example, the word cloud in line 1 rhymes with the word crowd in line 3. The word hills in line 2 rhymes with the word daffodils in line 4. The last words in lines 5 and 6 also rhyme, trees and breeze. The lines in the poem are in iambic pentameter, so that every other word is stressed. The poem could be read like this: the waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves, and so on. Wordsworth's name is commonly associated with English Romanticism. His poetry does not contain learned allusions, rather, it can be understood by almost every man. Romanticism is a deliberate turning over of the sophistication of neoclassicism. It can be defined as emotion recollected in tranquility. As a romanticist, Wordsworth's ideas stress the overall importance of nature. Wordsworth believes that nature's beauty uplifts the human spirit. We see this idea expressed in a few lines, specifically in lines 23 through 24, which read, "And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils." He also speaks about how sometimes people fail to appreciate nature's wonders as they are so consumed with their daily tasks, and sometimes they are just so accustomed to the sight of nature's beauty that they take it for granted. This idea is found in line 17. 10,000 saw I at a glance. He sees thousands of daffodils, but just sees them as a blur, not taking the time to really appreciate each and every one. Overall, it's really clear that Wordsworth holds nature to extremely important. Next, I'm going to read Wordsworth's poem, The World is Too Much with Us. The world is too much with us. Late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. This seed that bears her bosom to the moon. The winds that will be howling at all hours, and are up gathered, now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan suckled in creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lay, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn. Have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn. This poem is one of the many excellent sonnets written by Wordsworth in the early 1800s. It contains 14 lines written in iambic pentameter. This particular sonnet is written in the form of a Petrarchan sonnet, modeled after the work of an early Italian poet in the Renaissance. This means that it contains an octave and a sestet, each section with a different rhyme scheme. In this poem, Wordsworth is angry and accuses the modern age of having lost its connection to the nature and everything meaningful. This is a very key idea of Romanticism. He declares that we have given our hearts away to the materials of the world. We have exchanged our opportunity to see nature with our desire to acquire more stuff, an awful exchange, according to Wordsworth. In the sestet, the speaker angrily declares that he would rather be a pagan so that he could see ancient gods as controlling nature. This declaration was quite extreme, especially during the time of Christian England. He wishes that he could have been raised differently, so that, standing on this pleasant lay, he might see images of ancient gods rising up in the rolling waters, a sight that would bring him great happiness. He imagined seeing Proteus rising from the sea, and old Triton blowing his horn. Wordsworth has given up on mankind by slipping out of reality into a land of imagination. He would rather live as pagan than to be aware of how out of tune society is with nature. The poem was written around 1802, but wasn't published until 1807. In this poem, Wordsworth expresses many of his Romanticist ideas, claiming that our obsession with getting and spending has made us insensible to the beauties of nature. We are unable to appreciate the simple beauties of the world around us because of our worldly obsessions. We have put to waste our powers and abilities to take in nature because of our focus on materials. I do agree that we spend a lot of time consumed in our materials. However, I do not agree that the only way to know God is through His creation. It is extremely important that we read and study God's Word in order to know Him. Also, turning to paganism is definitely not an appropriate way to escape the reality of today's society. Overall, this poem and the one before it emphasize Wordsworth's and other poets' Romanticist view of nature. Nature is important, but commonly overlooked by society. We should focus less on materials of this world and learn to absorb the beauty of nature. Thanks for watching.